So I'm a builder, and we get plans, and people go, I love it when the architect says to the client, more importantly, the client goes to the architect and says, I've got 750 grand, design me a house. And the architect goes, sure, I'll design you a house. And I'll design it and it'll cost 750 grand. And then they do, and it comes to me or to my colleagues, and we go, that's 2.1. Or whatever it's going to be, 1.2. So how do we design costs? Well, I'm going to hand you over now to Sam Archer. Sam Archer is the New Zealand Green Building Council Director of Market Transformation, leading development and ongoing running of the organisation's sustainability and energy certifications, extensive background in sustainability, energy strategies, carbon policy work in the UK, sustainable urban design, low energy and passive building design. All of that's really cool. Let's figure out how we design out costs from our buildings. Let's make them more affordable. Ladies and gentlemen, Sam Archer.
Thank you, Peter.
Let's table it up there for you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Great. Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you very much, Peter. So we've got a wonderful panel session coming up. We've got four excellent panelists who are going to come and talk about exactly this issue of designing higher performance buildings at lower cost. So the real motivation for this particular session, when we were discussing it within Green Building Council, was initially some anecdotal stuff we were getting from different sources suggesting that the new H1 changes were costing some builders $50,000. We're also hearing, of course, some of the motivation is over the last couple of years we've been transitioning from the older version of Homestar version 4 to Homestar version 5. That new version is unashamedly pushing the standards up. We've got requirements around high levels of thermal insulation, the requirement to do energy modelling and embodied carbon modelling of the new homes. We've got continuous ventilation and treatment of things like thermal bridges and so on. So we're definitely pushing up the standards. But it's absolutely critical, as we have heard from some of the speakers earlier on, that when we're pushing up those standards, we can't really be adding huge amounts of extra cost to this. So we want to bring some of the panelists here to discuss, ways in which we can design those better, higher performance homes at lower cost. Something that we think passionately that we've seen the evidence that it is possible to do that. So I'm going to invite the panelists up onto the stage, please. We'll first invite Sarah Elicker, who is from Gracely. So Gracely is a consultancy that does a lot of Homestar work. Thank you very much, Sarah. Welcome to the stage. Could I have a round of applause for Sarah? Fantastic. Next up, we have Ankit Sharma, who is the new CEO of Registered Master Builders. So it's really, really great to have him come to the stage. Thank you very much. Next up, a really important part of the puzzle is BRANZ, of course. So we have Chris Litten, who is the General Manager of Research at BRANZ. Welcome to the panel. Thank you very much, Chris. And last but not least, we have Iman Khajehzadeh, who is the Homestar Manager at Kāinga. So he's been working a lot with Kāinga, and I'm going to sit down because he's going to be the first person to give us a really interesting presentation on the work that Kāinga are doing in bringing the costs of doing Homestar down.
Afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Sam. Today I'm going to present the result of the work that my team at Kāinga has been doing over the past few months to reduce the uplift cost to transition to Homestar version 5. I would like to thank Jack Steele, who is not here today, and Amy Singh, who is here among the audience, who helped us with the eco-modeling of our case studies. Okay, let's start with some definitions and assumptions. Firstly, the focus of this presentation is cost. And so we can look at this matter from different perspectives, but in this particular presentation, we have focused on cost. And when I refer to uplift cost here, I'm comparing the cost of building a dwelling that is built to Homestar version 6 Homestar version 5, to a building code compliant based on H1 5th edition. So for those of you who are not familiar with Homestar standards, I would like to explain how we can achieve Homestar version 5, 6 Homestar version 5 requirements by upgrading a building. Firstly, we need to model a building in the energy modeling. The default energy modeling is eco. There are 3 thresholds that we need to meet in our energy modeling. First one is the maximum annual delivered electricity. Second one is the maximum space heating demand. Third one is overheating thresholds. And what we need to do is to keep the indoor temperature of the house in the range of 20 to 25 degrees Celsius all the year. This diagram shows 9 elements within a building that we can upgrade based on the building code, minimum building code, to meet the Homestar version 5 requirements. As you can see, we can upgrade window frame, we can upgrade wall frame and wall insulation, we can upgrade underfloor and edge insulation, we can upgrade ceiling insulation, we can upgrade the ventilation system, or we can upgrade our hot water system and make it more energy efficient. We can upgrade front door and frame, or we can use more energy efficient heating system, for example, a centrally ducted heating system. And finally, we can shade our windows. Let's look at the case studies that we have used in this project. So we used 5 popular typologies that Kāinga builds. These 5 typologies are, the first one is the 1-bedroom standalone single story with a gross floor area of 53 square meter. The second case study is a duplex version of typology 1. The third case study is a 2-bedroom duplex, 2-story, 82 square meter. The fourth case study is a 3-bedroom standalone, 2-story, 119 square meter. And lastly, the 4-bedroom standalone, 2-story, 135 square meter. All these typologies, none of these typologies were designed for Homestar. So we have been using this typology for a while, not for Homestar. What we did, we upgraded those 9 elements in these typologies to meet the Homestar version 5 requirements, and then we costed the difference to see what was the cost. And the cost was high. What we did, we said that we can redesign those buildings based on Homestar concepts and then reduce the cost. And this is what we have done in this project. So these are the design updates that we have applied to this project, to all these typologies. We tried to add, remove, relocate, modify windows. We tried to add shading to some windows where required, and in climate change that is required. We tried to find the most energy efficient orientation for each typology. We specified energy efficient heating systems in some climate zone. In particular, we specified central ducted heat pump. And we tried to find the most cost-effective combination of those 9 elements that I mentioned earlier. And we tried to avoid expensive upgrades. So these slides show just graphical presentations of the changes that we have made. As I mentioned, we tried to find the best orientation. We knew that facing north probably is the best, but there are certain degrees from north that could work better in some climate zones. We also tried the best shape of the building, including what is the best length to width ratio. And also we tried to look at what happens if we use a full shape compared to a shape like this that has a cut corner. We worked at the elevations, so we specified different types of shapes of windows for each elevation. As you can see, we have specified different shapes of windows for different elevations. In particular, we tried to minimize the windows on the west or west-facing elevation, but it is a climate-sensitive decision. For example, this works in, this is a good change in climate zone 1, but not in climate zone 6. In climate zone 6, we don't have any problem with having windows in the west. These are our shading strategies. You can see that. I will not explain further. And then these are our updates on windows. As you can see, changing the size, adding openable areas, etc. on windows. So after applying all these design strategies to our typologies, these are the cost reductions that we have achieved. I'm not going to read all information in this table, and we'll only focus on the last column. As you can see, for these 5 typologies, we have achieved between 37 to 87% reduction in terms of the uplift cost. So basically, for the 2-level, 2-bedroom duplex, we achieved 87% reduction. For the 1-level standalone, we achieved 37% reduction, and the rest of that you can see. So in the next slide, I'm going to have a detailed look at the 1-level, 1-bedroom standalone typology and how did we achieve this 37% reduction. So this graph shows the investment in terms of cost that we have done for upgrading each of those 9 building elements. So the blue bar shows the cost for initial design, and the orange one shows the cost that we have actually invested in the redesign stage. As you can see, in the initial design, we invested more on the window upgrade. For wall, we invested a lot on upgrading wall insulation and wall frame, but in the redesign, we didn't invest anything above minimum building code. The other difference is slab. For the initial design, we did not invest on a slab insulation, but in the redesign, we invested a lot on the slab insulation. Ceiling, both of them are the same. Ventilation, in the initial design, we invested on ventilation system, but in the redesign, we didn't invest much on the upgrading in ventilation system. In the initial design, there was investment on hot water system, in particular, a hot water heat pump, but in the redesign, we just used the hot water cylinder, the normal one. No difference in the front door frame, and the heating system was also another key difference. We didn't have a specific heating system for the whole house in the initial design, but we specified a central heat pump for after redesign. And you can see the difference here, what we achieved. We achieved 37% reduction. So a smart selection of upgrades of building elements is also a key part of the cost. And the last topic that I'm going to discuss today is the impact of building orientation on the uplift cost. We actually modeled 2 buildings, 2 typologies to understand the impact of cost. So the first typology is the 2-level, 2-bedroom typology, duplex version. So as you can see, the option 1 is small elevation facing north, but it is duplex from west side. Option 2, large elevation facing south, it's duplex from the north side. Option 3, the large elevation facing north, and it's duplex from the south side. And the last option is a mirror of option 1, small elevation facing north, but it is duplex from east side. The lowest uplift cost was achieved in option 3. If you want to know why, I've shown the sun movement path for this typology. As you can see, the long elevation that has quite too many windows is facing north. So we get a good solar gain in winter. Obviously, the energy demand decreases here. So this is why this is so cheap to upgrade. But let's look at the most expensive option, which is this option, option 2. As you can see here, the large elevation here is facing south. So basically, we get very, very few sun gain in winter, just early morning and late afternoon, maybe half an hour or an hour. And the large elevation here doesn't get any sun in winter at all. So then we need to upgrade the building envelope, like adding more insulation, upgrading the windows, etc., to meet the requirements. This is why it's so expensive, and it's 420% more than option 3. But the question is option 3 our solution? Basically, no. It's the best one, but it's not our solution. Why? Because we can't build any of these typologies individually. They come as a pair. So we either have to choose option 2 and 3 as a pair, or option 1 and 4 as a pair. When we look at the cost of options 1, 2, 3, 4, actually the combined cost of option 1 and 4 is the cheapest solution for this typology. And so the other question is this like finding applicable to all typologies? No. We looked at a standalone typology, a square typology, and you can see in this typology, the main elevation can face 4 orientations. The cheapest uplift cost was achieved in option 1, where our main elevation is facing north, and that's because we had too many windows in that elevation. But all other options are, the difference between this option, the cheapest one, and others is between 0.3 to 8%, on average 3.5%. The reason is there are windows on all elevations for this typology. This is why the impact of orientation on these standalone typologies, if they are not designed for solar gain, will be minimum. So that was my last presentation. I intentionally didn't include any conclusion slide because we want to discuss that as a panel. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Actually, if you can move along. Wonderful, thank you very much. So I'll speak with this mic. Fantastic. So the first, we've now got a few questions to ask the panel here. So I'm going to start off with Sarah, if that's okay. So Sarah gets very heavily involved in helping clients get to the higher requirements of Homestar version 5. So I think in our preparations for this, Sarah, you were saying some of the stuff that Iman is talking about just kind of chimes with the way you do things. I wonder if you could give us a bit of a, well, first of all, say a bit about yourself, and then give a bit of a summary on your approach to how you help clients design to Homestar version 5 at lower cost.
Thanks, Sam. That's not working. No, it is. It is. Yeah. So we do a lot of work with social housing providers as well. So very similar to Iman, and thank you for that. That was really, really great. What we've found is that all the obvious no-cost things, which is orientation, designing, modelling early, the typologies like form factor, sort of simple things. But most importantly, it's getting people on board early, I think. For me, it's bringing people along. I'm a great advocate for talking to the builder and getting them, the builder sort of at the end of the line sometimes, and they just get dumped with stuff and they don't really know necessarily what is going on. But if you get them involved early and you get them on board and you sit them down, so usually what I do is I get them on a call, I share my screen, my Echo model screen, and I just start taking them through what happens when you switch orientation. Even like 15% makes a big difference. We look at air tightness. You know, it sounds like it's really complicated, air tightness, getting it down to from 5, which is the default, which is probably quite generous to be honest, down to 3. That really helps, and they can see actually the energy savings straight away at the top. And so I think the key for us is absolutely doing all the simple things out of the way, the orientation, modelling really early, getting people on board, and it's about sort of about getting people on your team that have the right attitude, that understand it already, because if it will take a long time to convince people who aren't already there, and that's pretty much it.
Fantastic, thank you very much, Sarah. You know, when we were chatting about this earlier on, you mentioned that word attitude, and that's really interesting. I thought that was one of the sort of key takeaways from this, that people need to rethink how they approach the design of buildings to achieve these kind of goals early in in the program. So next up, I've got a question for you, Ankit. So as I mentioned in my sort of introduction to this, we are hearing from builders in some extreme cases that they're kind of claiming these huge costs for the new H1. So I just wonder, what are the challenges that you're hearing from your members in terms of things like meeting the new H1 and meeting Homestar requirements and designing high performance buildings? What are the challenges, and what do you think we as a sector should be doing about those challenges?
First, thank you for having me today, Sam. Probably two areas. One, we do an annual state of sector survey of homeowners just to get their sentiments. And in the last survey, 55% of homeowners didn't want to pay a premium for sustainable homes, primarily citing cost as their primary driver. So one of the things we've been working and trying to understand is, I think when we talk about high quality, healthy homes in New Zealand, it's both a supply and a demand issue. So I think we need to keep improving standards, and I think we support that. But I think we need to also educate consumers, because they ultimately drive the demand. And I think, so that's kind of one. So in my mind, I think we probably need to do more to educate collectively as a sector around benefits, long-term benefits, both financial and health benefits of having good quality homes. In current economic climate, I think both lending and housing affordability are quite significant challenges for New Zealand. With some of the changes which the Reserve Bank is introducing around GTI means I think fewer people probably qualify for mortgages in the short term. So unfortunately, what that's going to do, we are seeing that through our membership, is there's quite a significant focus on cost. So it's hard to get the balance. I think this is why I really like the approach Iman is suggesting. So I think in principle, with good upfront design, I think you can achieve better quality within tight cost constraints. We absolutely believe that. And I think our view would be, it's probably a conversation we need to keep having. It's probably a long-term gain. We probably won't get there in the short term. Unfortunately, in the short term, there will be a lot of focus on costs. In terms of H1 in general, I think there are some feedback we are receiving around issues around mold in the ceiling, some overheating in summer. And our view is they're primarily driven by design. So I think advice we are giving to our members is we probably need to take much more holistic building approach. And we think taking a product view is not the right way. We need to kind of look at good design. We need to look at all the elements in the building working together. And I think when we do that, we have the ability to bring the cost down and also address some of the issues around ventilation and stuff like that. So I think in principle, I think a lot of our members and what we're hearing from the ground, I think we all get it, that we need to improve building standards in New Zealand. The construction sector is quite a big carbon emitter, so we have to do our bit to kind of get to the 2050 objectives. But it's very demand driven, and I think we need to do a lot more. I think one of the challenges we are facing is cheapest is not always the best option in the long term. And I think how do we get this message out to the consumer? And I think we probably need to do that collectively as a sector.
That's fantastic. And just on getting that information out to the sector, Ankit, I mean, one of the things I heard a lot, when I talk to builders is people involved in the sector and understanding the need to do things more holistically and design things better and all that kind of stuff is, maybe at the moment, as things are slowing down a bit, there's an opportunity there. But certainly 2 years ago, what I would hear is, look, we're so busy out on our building sites, head down, bum up, building the buildings. We don't have time to learn about these. So is that a reality? And if so, how do we get the training, the great brands information, and so on out to your kind of members who are out in the field actually building these buildings?
I think it's a good point. I mean, my simplistic view is if you look at the solar industry, when it started, it was probably the most expensive form of energy, very niche. And with working across pan industry, both supply and demand, over 2 generations, the cost of solar panels have come down by 90%. It's now seen. This year, somebody said to me, it's now the cheapest form of energy. So I think my view is we'll probably get there, but it's probably not going to be next year. So I think addressing both demand and supply, working across the sector, focusing on design, product development, having good building standards, keep improving the building standards, consumer education, I think will take time. I think I agree with Sarah's point. We probably need to have the right attitude. We probably need to have focused effort. And I'm confident with time we'll get there. But it's probably I see a long road.
It's not going to happen overnight. no, a slow journey. So that's a good segue into to you, Chris, just from the BRANZ point of view. So, it would be good to hear from you on, what work BRANZ is doing around understanding high-performance homes and how we get that information out, and maybe a little bit, I mean, it's a bit more, very immediate, but those H1 changes and what work you've been doing around that stuff.
Right, well, great to be here, so thank you for the opportunity. I think just to get one thing out of the way, just a bit of myth busting. BRANZ is not the regulator. So if anyone thinks we're making the rules, we're not. We're providing independent expert evidence to help those rules be set, but we don't make them. So having said that, and without the risk at risk of actually saying a lot of things that everyone said today, design it right, build it right, and operate it right is really going to be important. And I think really picking up on Sarah as well as what Rob said this morning was if you have a partnership between your designers and your builders at the outset, right up front, that's really going to help and you're going to get there. You will get there. And I think Ankit's right, we will get there eventually. So that's exciting. I think there's a really big part of there's change coming, right? There's a lot of change coming on, and to be able to develop and deliver sustainable, low carbon, affordable, warm, dry, healthy homes. It's a big mouthful. It's a lot to do. So we're doing a lot of work really trying to understand what those new skills and requirements are. What do builders, what designers, what do the tradies need to really be able to design and build those? So we're doing a big piece of work at the moment around called the future of work to help understand and deliver those into Polytech or to Kāinga, or what we call them now, BCITO and the others, as well as the unis and the rest of it, and also working with master builders and certified builders about understanding what their needs are and getting that information out to people. I think the operate it is a really interesting part, we know people live in these homes, which is probably a good thing, but we also know that everybody looks after their home and operates it differently. People dry clothes in their home, they don't open the windows, they don't understand why they need to. There's a whole lot of interesting stuff in there that we really need to unpack. And I think one of the really important parts of the work that BRANZ is doing at the moment, we've got truckloads, literally 50 years of research, knowledge and insights. What we're really focusing on now is trying to unlock that so people will use it and understand it. As an example, we did something really radically different for us. So I sent my researchers off to 3 home and garden shows across the country, just to talk to consumers, to understand and help them understand about ventilation, right? So we're in Rotorua, actually Pete Wolfcamp was there too. We're in Rotorua, Wellington and Nelson, and we were probably the most popular stands. We weren't trying to sell anything, but what we're trying to tell people was that if you even ventilate your home right, you're going to be healthier. And we were able to gave everybody who was interested a small device which showed the temperature of their home and the humidity, and it had a smiley face if it was good and a sad face if it was sad. And if you had a sad face, here's a checklist of things you need to do. We've got emails coming from homeowners that along the line say that my 2 sons have had asthma and chronic coughing for years. They've got your hygrometers, they've got a sad face, they open their windows in the morning now, and they're all much better and they're sleeping through the night. I mean, that's the type of stuff we want to do, right? And if we can create that change, and even it's a bit slow doing one person at a time, so we want to do a bit faster than that. But if we can do that, that's really going to help everything.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Chris. Iman, I wonder if I could sort of put you on the spot a little bit around, having done this wonderful work, which is showing that optimization can really, that's really the key message, isn't it? That if you optimize the design early, then you can get the costs down. I wonder if, I know that Kāinga hasn't yet committed to full version 5 of Homestar. Hopefully they will soon. But in the meanwhile, are there sort of lessons learned that might be taken back to the kind of drawing board within Kāinga in terms of the houses that you're working on, or advice maybe you're giving to your design teams or architects? Or
thank you very much. Yes, the plan is to present the results of this work. This is just completed a week ago. And the plan is to present the results of this work to our design partners and implement all these strategies in our design library and all future work.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so that's the plan. There are all other ways that we can manage this to reduce the uplift cost, and we will discuss that with our designers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess that's a good segue into, I guess, one of my questions that's now an open question to everyone, and it's sort of been brought up a little bit in some of the conversations I've been having over coffee and actually on this panel, which is, what is the role of standardization? Because I mean, a lot of your work here is around, Kāinga has standard plans, right? And a lot of that is around reducing costs. If you do things the same way over and over again, you can do it more cost effectively, I think. But I mean, what should we be doing around moving away from the kind of bespoke houses that we've been building a lot of in New Zealand to bring those costs down? And that's a question to everyone.
Yeah, actually, this is probably the most complicated area for Kāinga, because on one side, we need to standardize our design, but on the other side, we know that the impact of orientation is quite significant.
Yes.
The impact of the climate zone is significant. So the easiest solution is to design for the worst case scenario, like for the worst orientation and for the coldest climate zone. But the problem is that that building will be too expensive. So we need to find somewhere between. So that's not bespoke and not 100% standard design. So what we are currently thinking is to have several versions of one design with different elevation designs. At least we can work on the window sizes, window locations, etc., to work for different climate zones and different orientations. That's our current strategy.
Yeah, there are always challenges around that. I mean, I heard recently there was a sort of anecdote around a planning rule, which is that there was a house where the main elevation faced onto the street was facing south, and the planners are requiring at least 20% window glazing on that facade. Really, that's a common, sometimes a problem, for example, right? Any other perspectives on standardization in the industry?
Can I have a go? I think I just came from a builders conference, and we were talking about standardization. Australia versus New Zealand. I think that's a nirvana, and I think we need to get there. The more standardization we will do, more we will get consistency. That's how we'll bring the cost down. And I think comparatively, our cost to build are significantly higher compared to what we are seeing in similar jurisdictions. And I think we all want our houses to be different. I was talking to some group home builders. They said, look, we've got standard designs, and then we'll get 10 variations when we start talking to consumers. So there's an element of phasing that. Like Iman is saying, there's the elements of design and products we need to look to standardize. And I think there's a whole piece of education we need to do around, what are the bits which need to standardize, what are the bits which needs to personalize. But I would say, based on everything we are seeing, that's probably the biggest barrier. If we can find ways to get some standardized designs and consistency, I think that will probably help us bring the cost down.
Yeah, we'd love to see standardisation too, much more. I think there's so many efficiencies and opportunities there. I think though, it's particularly at the moment around H1, I think if you really want to bring costs down and be a little bit outside the box, drop the schedule method. You should be, if you're not already using the calculation or modelling methods, you should be moving there rapidly, because it gives you so much more freedom and opportunity to be a bit more creative and bring those costs down. So
that's fantastic. And then just to sort of swinging things back to H1, so of course, as we all know, that we had those H1 changes that were phased in over the last year and a half or so, and the first phase change got pushed back by 6 months because of some issues around the readiness of the industry, I suppose. So again, are there any sort of lessons learned as MB starts to think, hopefully, around introducing building for climate change, around the readiness of the industry and the readiness or lack of readiness then impacting on costs? What should we and MB be doing there?
I think the delay probably highlighted the need for adequate implementation periods to give industry ability to kind of just upscale and scale. And I think with the feedback which has gone in, I'm fairly comfortable. We kind of understand what that means. So for me, I think it'll be about better consultation. The general view is I think standards need to get better. Standards, so regulation is a baseline, and I think we probably need to aspire more than that, trying to achieve minimum what the regulation is doing. So I think the more upfront engagement we do in developing these standards, giving ability to industry to scale up, the whole product changes which are happening, it will be interesting to see how that works out. And how the role they're going to play, because we at one stage are talking about standardization. separate conversation I was in the morning. We were talking about bringing more products into New Zealand. So I think we'll just have to balance that. But I think what this is saying is we can't make some of these decisions in isolation. We probably need, as industry, come together, probably consult a little bit more, understand the implications, and roll them out in phased manner.
Yep.
And again, taking from Rob's presentation this morning, being clear where we're going and making sure the education wraparound and the support is there for everyone to know what they need to do and when they need to do it.
Yep. Yep. I mean, by implication, did MB not provide that education early enough for the H1 changes?
I wasn't happy to do it. So. Oh, sorry.
Fantastic. I'm not seeing any questions being asked by the audience here. Has anyone got any questions that are coming through? Maybe I haven't got the right sheet here. Or no, not yet. Okay. Yeah. So, Ankit, you just mentioned the foreign products kind of thing that's coming through. I mean, is that part of the answer in terms of bringing down costs? Has anyone else got any? Thank you.
So I'm probably going to go off script on that one. There are two ways of looking at it. So I think as we bring new products in, so my general view is competition is always good. And I think I've seen that in telecommunications sector when we were doing deregulation. Everybody said New Zealand is too small, our internet, nobody needs a gig internet, and it will have no difference. And I think it's made a huge difference. So I think bringing more product in, if it's done in the right way, it brings the right competition.
Yep.
And I think if the products are introduced in a way, it's not creating another leaky home crisis. They're actually done in a managed way. I think over time it will have a positive impact. Deregulation like this or competition will generally tend to do that. We just need to kind of manage that. So I think we are now having different conversations. At one stage, we are saying as a sector we need to standardize and we need to find ways to bring the cost down. So it's kind of balancing that to go, we need more competition, we need to have more products, we need to have more options, we need to bring the cost down, and we have to somehow find a way to do that and bring the cost down. I think it's possible, we'll just have to manage that. So products, I think, will be good in the long term if it's done right.
Yep.
And I think Minister Penk, I was just talking to him just before coming in here, and he was saying he's expecting the first wave of products to come in from Q1 next year. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Right, we'll come. We have fantastic. We do have some questions from the floor. So the first one is bringing us back to that consumer perspective. What technical, marketing, or educational resources would be useful to help explain benefits to clients and to put costs into perspective? Anyone want to answer that one?
Well, I think BRANZ is willing to do anything we can to help explain and to educate people. So many people in this room will have that experience. So if you want to contact us and tell us how that's worked for you, we'll be more than willing to get that out into the consumer market. So we're experts in many things, but not actually on the ground doing the stuff that you guys are doing. So if you can tell us, we'll be happy to repackage whatever we need to do and get it out again.
An interesting question here about question here. So many conversations end with clients, builders, designers who just don't believe there's an issue with the current way in which we're building. So how do we respond to that? For Sarah, you.
It's so hard, isn't it? I guess you have to think about what is. We sort of have to market ourselves, I think, as an industry. You mentioned about the solar panels and how that's just taken off. And maybe we have something, we can learn something with how they have sort of positioned themselves in the market. We do all these pictures of like condensation on windows and it's all very dreary and awful and, sick kids and I get that, but it's not working, is it? So how do we sort of make it more like, oh, you're going to have this brilliant life? I loved the presentation before the hapu, and how so much love in that kind of presentation, and maybe we need to just get a bit smarter with how we communicate.
Yeah. And just on the research side, I mean, I think one of the things that maybe we haven't been doing very well as an industry is just showing how much better the high performance homes are in terms of performance.
And everybody who's lived overseas And you know, we all know how comfortable it is.
Yep.
But most people never had that experience, so they
Yep.
don't know how to.
Yeah. A little plug for a piece of work that we are doing with BRANZ at the moment. So BRANZ is working on this fantastic study called HEAP. So HEAP was a study where they put tons of monitoring equipment in, I think, around 300 homes 10 years ago. That's now being repeated. Sorry, I'm talking over your work here, but we're funding.
You're funding it.
we're funding 60 of the homes to look at monitoring higher performance homes to see you know, the impact of those. What's going to be really interesting is seeing, you know, building code from the last 10 years. How is that performing in terms of moisture? And you know, I don't know if you want to say any more about that, Chris. But
yeah, it's an exciting study. I think it's we've just finished putting the last of the sensors into 300 homes across the country and really understand how energy is used in homes. And not only that, it then goes with Stats New Zealand's general social survey. So how are you feeling about being in your house and actually what's your health like? And also on top of that is also all the energy use. So it's statistical across the country. We're just starting to capture the data now. It will be really interesting to see things have changed. 10 years ago, what was a Tesla power? Well, what was a PV? Didn't happen.
Yep.
We didn't even have LED lights really. And one in 100 homes had a heat pump. Now it's more like 1 in 100 don't have them. So it's a huge difference. So it's going to be interesting.
Chris, what monitors did you use?
Ooh,
Are you allowed to say that?
I'm going to ask my researchers that one. That's all, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
wonderful. We're coming up to the end of the timing, so I'd just like to say a really big thank you and a warm welcome and a round of applause, please, for our wonderful four panelists. So I've just got a couple of slides to conclude this session. So I think from NZGBC's point of view, this whole subject of costs really, and we've heard it a little bit from the panel tonight, this afternoon, are really two key messages we want to get across, which is high performance homes can be achieved for little to no extra cost. We've seen that from Kāinga in terms of the optimization work they've done, and get design advice early. We're seeing too many projects actually from a V5 point of view where the house has already got resource consent or even worse, building consent, and then they ask us, can we do version 5? It's way too late. You need to do things right at the upfront. And a little plug. So I think within your conference app, there should be a link somewhere to a wonderful project we've just been working on over the last year or so with Respond Architects, supported by ADNZ and NZIA, and that's a Homestar design guide. What this was really trying to address is, the technical manual for Homestar says what you need to achieve. We haven't done as much as we could have done as Green Building Council in terms of how you achieve it. So we've now got this really fantastic resource available on our website, which gives tons and tons of different details, standard ways of approaching getting a Homestar V5 6-star and 8-star home in different climates. So do download that and enjoy that. Thank you very much.